you.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to start by doing introductions, if we could, because we have some new faces. I'm Brooke Olson-Farrell, the superintendent. Len, do you want to?
Glenn Cousineau, Orwell board member.
Peter Stone, Orwell board member.
Tim Smith from Castleton.
I'm Chris Stanton from Fairhaven.
Patty Ballmer representing Benson.
John Wurzbacher, Orwell.
Rebecca St. Peter, Benson.
Karina Jetsi, Benson.
Janice Ranke, Hubbardton.
Christina Ryan, Hubbardton. Julie Finnegan, Castleton.
And Tara Buxton, Fairhaven.
And then Tony and Kurt, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Well, I'm Curtis Heyer, and I was just elected to the board, and I was shocked. I planned a trip down south. I will get my paperwork in, the oath of office. Apparently, I won't be able to vote on anything tonight, but I'll get that taken care of.
Right. Thanks, Kurt.
Hi, I'm Tony Lobdell, representing Castleton.
All right. Did I get everyone? All right. To the administrators, do you want to introduce yourselves? Chris Cole, do you want to start?
Pat Walters, hi, Orwell Middle School. I'm Ben Worthing, I'm the principal at Fairhaven Union Middle and High School.
Kimber Hoda, principal of Castleton Elementary.
Margaret Hayward, assistant principal of special ed, middle school and high school.
Amy Roy, principal at Benson. I'm Devin Furna, principal of Fairhaven Grade School.
I'm Buckett, assistant principal at Fairhaven Grade School.
All right. Okay. Oh, introduce yourself, Casey.
Casey O'Mara, director of curriculum for Slate Valley. Sorry.
Chris.
And I'm Chris Cole, the director of operations for Slate Valley.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to call the board meeting to order at 6:35. And the first order of business is to elect a board chair. Do I have any nominations?
I would like to nominate Tim Smith as our board chair.
Do I
Second it.
Second. Any other nominations? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Who made the nomination?
Tara made the nomination, Patty seconded. All right, Tim.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. The next order of business would be to seek nominations for vice chair. I know Peter expressed an interest in continuing in that role. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
So moved. Peter.
Second. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? All right, hearing.
I have a question about vice chair. It's just popped in my head. So vice chair does not mean they're interested in being board chair the following year. So it has no,
Not
there's nothing
necessarily.
necessarily about that? Okay.
Right.
Any other questions or discussion or any other nominations for vice chair? All right, hearing nothing further, all those in favor of Peter continuing as vice chair, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, next seeking nominations for the role of clerk of the school board. Currently, it's Tara.
I'll nominate Tara as the clerk of the school board.
I'll second it.
All right, are there any other nominations for clerk of the school board? Any discussion or questions? And hearing nothing, all those in favor of Tara continuing in her role as clerk, please say aye.
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 Alrighty, so just some housekeeping first. Again, I want to welcome our new members, Janice, Karina, and Kirk online. Thanks for stepping up and running and representing your town, and certainly reach out to any other board members if you have questions or concerns, and certainly I encourage you to ask as many questions as you want as you get familiar and comfortable with things. So Candace had included contact information for everyone to update. She had included an oath of office, which Tara can notarize here tonight. She had included a code of ethics, which I believe needs to be signed and returned on an annual basis. So if you have those in your possession, feel free to just circle them towards the middle and we'll gather them up. And if you don't have them completed, just do so promptly and get those emailed over to Brooke. Did you want to play that video now of just,
Yeah, that's fine.
there's a short video here put on by the VSBA about school board member responsibilities and expectations, so we'll just.
And I have ordered new essential work of school boards booklets for all of you. They just aren't in yet. There was a run on them and we ordered them a month ago and we still don't have them, so they're on their way.
The essential work of Vermont school boards is a framework that VSBA put together to help define the scope of the school board job and offer best practices and how to go about accomplishing it. We've identified 6 domains as part of the essential work of Vermont school boards, all of which are really critical to doing the job and all happen concurrently, so they're really interdependent. And while we list them and tend to talk about them in this particular order, they really do all influence each other. What you're looking at here is a screenshot of the essential work of school boards toolkit from our website. The toolkit is a distillation of all the key references and tasks for good governance in each of the 6 main areas of school board work. A good place to start the conversation is talking about engaging the community and establishing a vision overview, because everything else really hinges on that vision. The board is in the strongest position when it is engaged with the community, clear in its vision for education and unified in its direction. So the board should develop structured and ongoing opportunities for the community to define and refine the vision for the school district. Once the vision is in place, the board then takes on the responsibility for monitoring progress and making policy and budgetary decisions to achieve the vision. To keep the community engaged in the ongoing work of the district, including current successes and challenges, the board must seek to engage community stakeholders in a variety of settings and contexts. The development and maintenance of school district policies is the central job of a school board. The board must ensure the district not only achieves educational results for students, but does so in a manner that complies with legal requirements and meets community expectations. The board does this by setting policies that articulate the values and concerns of the board as trustees of the school district. Once the board has established policy, it delegates the authority to further interpret the policy to the administration, which is often done through written procedures. The board should regularly monitor for policy compliance. After all, if it's important enough to be addressed in policy, it must be monitored. Perhaps the most important decision a board makes is to hire a qualified superintendent to lead and manage education through the district or supervisory union. Boards provide oversight. They do not manage day-to-day operations of a school system. Vermont law designates the superintendent as the chief executive officer for the supervisory union or district. As the CEO, the superintendent is accountable for the operations of the entire school system. To employ a well-qualified and capable superintendent, a board needs to be in a position to assure mutual accountability between the board and the superintendent. The board is accountable to provide clear direction and set priorities for the superintendent. And the superintendent is then accountable to deliver on those priorities of the board. Financial resources support the delivery of education, so the board has an important role in making sure the education system has adequate resources to achieve its mission, and also in providing high-level financial oversight to make sure resources are properly managed on behalf of taxpayers. The board needs to devote time each year to establishing the importance of its financial oversight responsibility and to conveying the importance of careful management of resources by all staff in the supervisory union or district. Managing financial resources responsibly is foundational to achieving the educational mission. You've heard me mention monitoring and oversight as we've talked about some of these other domains. What it boils down to is that the board is accountable to the community to ensure that the district makes reasonable progress in achieving outcomes for students and that the system operates in compliance with all policies, laws, and regulations. To meet this obligation, the board needs to monitor both these areas regularly. In order for administrators to be able to produce evidence related to these areas, the board must clearly identify the student learning outcomes and system operations outcomes it expects based on the board's vision, policy, strategic plans, and goals. Finally, don't forget that the school board is a public body trusted by the community to oversee the system of education for children in the school district. As elected officials, school board members must act with integrity and adhere to the highest ethical standards. Lawful and effective operations are crucial to a strong school board. Effective operations are characterized by well-organized meetings with agendas that focus discussion and decision-making, engaged board members who have the information necessary to make informed decisions, and practices, protocols, and policies that are legally compliant. If any questions come up for you as you think about all of this or explore the toolkit on our website, please feel free to reach out. I'm Susan Holson, Director of Education Services at VSBA, and you can email me or call me with your questions or thoughts.
And for the new members out there, I think you become enrolled in the VSBA, and that's a good resource to check out on just rules, procedures, and there's probably some trainings on there as well for new board members. So just connect with Brooke and make sure that you can get enrolled in that.
Yeah.
All right, so the next order of business, I believe, would be to discuss our meeting times and schedule for next year. I think what Brooke had included in our packets was consistent with how we currently run our meetings, which is the second and fourth Tuesday of every month, rotating amongst the schools. The board meeting starts at 6:30, and then the policy committee meeting that comes beforehand would start at 5:30. I would take a motion to approve that or just open it up for discussion or concerns about potentially changing our meeting habits.
Make a motion to approve it as it is.
Second.
All right, any further discussion on the meeting schedule for 23-24? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next, we have to approve the paper of record for the school board. Currently, those two papers are the Rutland Herald and the Addison Independent. So I would take a motion to appoint those papers as our paper of record.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any other papers that we're overlooking or anything, Brooke?
I mean, we publicize in a lot of papers, but those would be the ones where our meeting warnings are, so.
Okay. Any further discussion on the papers of record? All right, hearing nothing further, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's just in there.
All right, next, let's go through the committee assignments. So there's policy committee, finance committee, executive committee, which includes one member from each town. And in cases where there's an evaluative component necessary, generally the executive committee serves in that function. There's a Stafford Tech advisor, teacher negotiations, support staff negotiations, and sick bank representation. So you've got the current roster. So currently, and for the new board members, certainly we encourage you to be on a committee. More than one if you so choose. So just speak up and let us know what you're interested in. So with policy committee, we have Julie, Tony,
Well, yeah.
and
board
then
chair is
and then
on.
myself as board chair. Those are our current members. Do you folks wish to continue on? Julie and
Fine.
Tony?
Fine.
Tony,
Yes.
you're good? Okay. You writing these down? Got
Mhm.
these? Okay. All right. Is anyone else interested in being on the policy committee?
I'd like to be on that.
Betty Beaumont?
Yeah, I'm going on.
Tara as well?
I'm leaving buildings and ground.
Okay.
Boo.
All right. So it looks like we have our policy roster set. Anyone else? And who's online? Kurt, Tony, and is Christine here tonight?
No, I don't see Christine.
Okay. All right, so next, moving on to finance, the current members are Tara, Glenn, Julie, Christine, and Becca. Do you all wish to continue on in that
I'll stay
assignment?
on finance, yep.
Okay. And I know Christine did mention that to me that she was going to be absent, so she wanted to stay on
Okay.
finance.
And then Glenn staying on,
Yes. Yep.
and Becca.
Yes.
Yep. She nodded.
Is there anyone else going on?
Anyone?
I'd be interested in that, Tim.
Okay, Kurt, thank you. And Tara and Julie, yes? Chris?
No, Tara's no.
Okay.
I said yes already.
Yeah.
All right, so the executive committee, currently it's Christine from Hubbardton, myself from Castleton, Peter from Orwell, Rebecca from Benson. And then that would be it. So we, I guess, would first ask, well, Christine, myself, Peter, are you okay being on the executive committee?
I'm fine.
Okay. Julie, did you want to take my place, or Tony, or?
I mean, that we're not in a evaluative year, correct?
I think the law is going to change where you have to evaluate me every year.
Oh, that's so nice of them. Yeah, sure, I can stay on that, that's fine. Or if you want to, Tim, or we can, as the time comes, I mean, it's not, whatever, either way.
Why don't you just leave it myself for now?
Yeah, it's fine.
And
Okay.
Becca's staying on it, and then we need somebody, well, we have no one from West Haven.
Correct.
So we need
So
someone.
Fairhaven would be
Fairhaven.
Tanya, Chris, or Kurt, looking for a volunteer for the
Kurt,
executive.
I think
Tara.
Tanya should do it.
What did I say?
You said Tanya instead of Tara.
Tara, Kurt, or Chris? Volunteers.
You have the most experience, Tara. That
I've never been on it, so why not?
you should.
Oh, it's a-
Sure.
It's a good time.
Thank
It's a good time.
It doesn't meet very much, it's kind of an,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Next would be the Stafford Tech
Ooh,
Advisory Board.
I'd like that one,
And Rick was on it before.
Okay,
but I'd really like that one.
okay. Is everyone else? Julie's volunteering. Is anyone else?
I would be interested in that.
We have more than one?
Cannot.
No, okay.
Or you can go.
Okay. Do you guys want to have
No,
a vote
I mean,
off?
she
Or?
has, it's fine.
Okay.
I didn't know there's only one, so
Thank you.
yeah.
All right, so Julie will be our Stafford Tech representative. Teacher negotiations, probably not necessary, really? Or do we still need a
Well, right,
board?
but I would still.
Okay.
So they're not going on currently?
No,
Correct.
we're in the middle of a contract. This is year two, or actually the budget that was just approved for next year is
Is year
year two.
You have 2 more years.
2 more years. So currently, teachers negotiations is Patty, Glenn, Christine, myself, Rebecca, and I guess we would need someone from Fairhaven to take the place of Rick. But again, there more than likely will not be any business for this committee in this upcoming year. So, Kurt, you want to
I'd be
volunteer?
willing to do that,
Okay.
unless Chris wants to. I'm
No,
fine.
I think because I have family members involved that I should not be involved.
Okay.
All right, moving on to support staff committee. We are actively in negotiations right now, so it'd be best, I believe, to kind of keep the same people in place. Those people would be Glenn, who's chairing that committee, Tony Lobdell, Christina Ryan, Rebecca, myself, and again, Rick. So we could use a replacement and a representative from Fairhaven for Rick on the support staff committee. I guess, Chris,
I could do that.
you could do that one? Okay, Chris Stanton, you good?
Okay. First meeting for that's next Wednesday.
Let me know.
And then one person for the sick bank. Rebecca, you're good for that? All right. So, and again, these aren't locked in stone for the new members as you get.
The buildings and grounds?
No.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, I was
Skip
gonna
that?
say. Could
No
have
committee.
sworn that I,
It's not
that I
on-
didn't
It's
hear
not on my
that.
list.
Oh, it's right here. Maybe
Oh,
when you printed,
it got cut. It got cut. Yes, I'm sorry. That's
Oh, you cut the
important.
committee? Okay.
That's
That's
an So buildings and grounds currently Patty, Tara, who wants to be off, Chris, Rebecca, John, Peter. You guys all interested in staying on?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any- All right. Any new members to buildings and grounds? Okay. All right.
So Tim, one thing to let the new people know is just because you're not on the committee doesn't mean you can't show
Right.
up to all the committee meetings. You just are not a voting, at the moment, voting person, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
So, like, I almost always go from policy right to buildings and grounds and listen anyway, so it's easy to do. If you're interested in one, you can just go.
Okay.
A question, Tim.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
You raised your
There-
hand.
is-
Good.
Is there anything planned this year for the strategic planning committee?
Not
Sure.
right this second.
Do you need people to volunteer for that, or is that one of those ones
That's
that?
not a board.
It's kind of
committee,
like,
a
it's not a
school
board
Right.
committee, but it's kind of like an ad hoc committee, but,
Okay.
yeah, so if we do, I'll put something out and often too, we also might ask board members to sit on interview committee too, so.
Okay.
So there might be some of that stuff coming up.
Question for Tim.
Sure, Kurt, go ahead.
Does the finance committee not meet until the budget season, or do they meet over the summer?
No, we meet.
On April 10th.
We meet every month, Kurt. It's in parallel with the first meeting each month. It's at 5:30 in advance of the regular board meeting. So yes,
Or April 10th will be the next one.
that's correct.
Okay.
So Tim, my question was if I'm on policy and buildings and grounds, they happen at the same time?
Mhm.
Oh,
Exactly
yes,
right.
we didn't clarify that.
I didn't talk about that,
Yep.
so.
Well, how many conflicts are there? Let's see. Can you
It's just, I think it's just Patty.
just Patty?
Just Patty, the conflict.
Was she on board?
I will say, if you're really
No.
interested in boarding and grounds, fine, but almost always policy ends and we can go to boarding, buildings and grounds.
That is
Policy
true.
is not
I
very
think you
long.
can
of a
probably
committee.
be on both if you want. And just
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can always choose to, like, if there's not a quorum or a quorum.
So
you
we
can always
do struggle with a quorum sometimes
For
on
policy.
policy, so if any of the new members really are interested, okay.
I just wanted to hear what they all were and like,
Okay,
but I'd like to do policy.
okay.
Yeah.
What is like discussed in the like what is the role of the policy?
So it might be like our attendance policy, or, I mean, it could be a wide range of things, security cameras, it could be
Okay.
curriculum, I mean, like a whole bunch of different
And we review them annually in a certain order so that we're looking at them all the time and updating them. The SBA comes out with things. We do not do procedures. So we do not write how to handle the policy. We
Right.
just have the policy.
Okay, I'd be interested in that.
No more quorum issues, huh?
Hopefully not.
All right, so I think our committee roster is set. And I guess before we move into the body of the meeting, again, just want to thank the towns, the taxpayers for getting out to vote, for supporting our school budgets, administrators, teachers, staff. I know everyone put in a lot of work this cycle to get the word out and drum up support, and it certainly paid off the first time around. We had good turnout and a strong percentage, 57% approved the budget, so we're thankful for that. All right. And hopefully there's some lessons learned that we can continue to apply so we can have a good run of success here.
I didn't know if you wanted a little kind of like what I heard from people about why they voted yes for the budget.
Sure.
Everybody that I have talked to has been extremely pleased with our communication presence and the quality of what's being communicated since Lisa took over. And I heard that multiple times when I was either voting or if I was asking people or at town meeting. People were very impressed with that and felt very communicated to, not just here's what we're doing, but it felt incorporated into it. So I just wanted to put a shout out for that because it was mentioned way more than once.
John?
Prior to the vote, we did a very good job of communicating, the budget. I know we're not required to post our ballot. I found it on the Orwell page after I went looking for it. It's not on our website. But since we obviously have an issue getting enough board members, it might be helpful if people really knew before the election that we had, vacant seats which nobody was running for. I only went looking for the ballot because somebody I know got an absentee ballot and asked me, about what do I know about various people running for, there's only one race that was, that had, contested. But, if people had that information ahead of time, it might motivate somebody to actually, do a write-in campaign.
Okay. Yeah, we can work on that for next year.
Any other comments about town meeting or the vote?
I will just say that Christina posted on Front Porch Forum about the open Hubbardton quite often, and I didn't know that there was an open seat, and she was very helpful in answering all of my questions ahead of time. So I think that's one avenue for sure of getting out information about open seats. And I know there's some information too about the budget. So yeah, I think that's a great way to get information out. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I think every town is actually represented in full except West Haven, which has 0 members. So we've got 5 towns times 3 is 15, and then 0 from West Haven. So if anyone,
This is the most board members we've had in a long time.
yeah, so that's good.
But West Haven will be advertising and trying to find someone to maybe be appointed.
Okay. So again, I'll just give a plug to Lisa. Again, Lisa,
Yep.
thank you so much for all the work that you do with your marketing and outreach. All right, so let's approve the agenda for tonight.
It says bylaws, Tim. Were we supposed to do something with those?
I think it's just
No,
an
they're
FYI.
just informational. So the bylaws, I believe, Candace emailed
She did.
to you. And that gives a description of all of the committees and gives a good overview of some different inner workings of the board. So
No action required?
no,
Just for,
no, they were just for informational purposes.
Gotcha.
I looked at them all, but
Just had a place for a signature, so it made it look like,
Oh, yeah.
made it
they're
look like
all-
it needed to
yeah,
be signed.
Yeah.
So
We're good.
all right, so regarding the agenda, in discussion with Brooke, number 7, we do not have a student presentation tonight. That can be removed. Number 13, board meeting agenda is really not applicable. And number 11, we don't really have a job description to approve, but rather in that slot, we will consider some pre-qualification and bid information that Chris Cole needs us to look at.
What about the 504?
Yeah, there's a 50. Yeah, there's a 504 job
Job
description.
description.
Yeah,
I know.
we're gonna hold that to the next meeting.
Okay.
So I would look for a motion to approve the agenda with those changes.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing nothing, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye. Any opposed? Next, looking for a motion to approve the minutes from February 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections, discussion on those meeting minutes? Hearing nothing, all those in favor of approving those minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public comments. We'll start with our in-person audience, and everyone here appears to be an employee of some sort. So moving on to the online, is there anyone attending online who has a public comment? Please unmute and introduce yourself, if so. Are they? Okay. No public comments, correspondence, Brooke?
Nope, I don't have any.
Okay. All right, so then skipping through 7 to number 8, field trip requests. It looks like there were 2 sheets, both, I think, one and the same, relating to an Orwell request to go to Boston for Red Sox and some STEM work.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Patrick, anything more to that, or?
I have Patty Ann Holden, my 5th grade teacher, is online, and she's
Okay.
gonna talk to you a little bit about the trip.
Sure. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Cannot hear you.
No.
Can't hear you, Patty Ann.
Can you hear me?
It looks like the.
You're breaking up.
Go net speed rocks.
Sorry, I'm in Benson.
Maybe turn the camera on.
Just do audio.
Sorry.
Just do audio.
Let's try audio.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, that was okay.
Okay, so we're looking to bring 30 students and 7 staff members to the Boston Red Sox game, and also the STEM event. So each year the Boston Red Sox hosts STEM education days, and the focus will be on NASA. So students will see planetary science specific demonstrations, and they'll get to participate in activities like building a volcano, building asteroids out of clay, touching meteorites, and then after the fair, the opportunity to attend a game, and we'll be looking at the batting average of the players and comparing them. So it's like an amazing educational opportunity to bring our students to Boston. So I came from, and I would like to go.
All right, thanks, Patty. So I'd look for a motion to approve that request, right? Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions for Patty or Patrick on the field trip?
Oh, can I, go ahead.
Go ahead. I have some questions. First of all, so the Red Sox are sponsoring this event, is what you're saying. And so they're going to something that's educational, and then they're going to a Red Sox game, and they're staying overnight at a hotel, and it's a pretty hefty price tag. So who is paying for that, and what are you doing about students who cannot pay for a hotel, and what kind of safeguards are we putting into, where are they staying? Yaqui Way area, or?
I can't remember the name of the hotel that they're staying at, but the students don't have to pay. Quite a few parents are going with them, you know, an idea to bring the community in and work with them. And they don't have to pay.
Who's paying for it?
We have the money. We've done some fundraising. We have money to pay.
So you're paying for the parents as well?
No, we're not paying for the parents. We're paying for the kids and the staff members.
And why are you staying overnight? I don't understand.
Because we went a few years ago,
Uh-huh.
and they left at like 3 a.m. and they got all the way down to Boston, and they got stuck in some, morning traffic, and they ended up missing the STEM part. So they want to go overnight so that they can be there early in the morning to make the STEM portion of the event, and it's all held right in Fenway Park. And as far as safeguards are concerned, they're going to be staying out in the hallway. Staff members will be staying out in the hallway with the kids. The kids will be in the rooms.
So that was my thing too about payment, because it's not clear on here, like how they're paying. So the district's not paying anything. It's all fundraising that you guys have done at Orwell that's paying for this.
Right, the district's not paying.
The district's not. And what are they using, a district bus though to get down there?
Yeah, we're using a school bus.
Okay, all right, okay. And that's part, you guys are paying for that too, or is that something that
I
the
think
district?
that's part of our field trip
Okay,
expenses.
from the school?
Yes.
Okay, from the school district, okay.
So what goals are we meeting here? What standards are we addressing? What?
Patty Ann, can you speak to the science standards
Yes.
that might be
So we
impacted here?
Yeah. Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so we are being math and science standards. So we're going to be meeting the statistics standard when we're looking at the batting averages, and also some place value and with math. And then with science, we are going to be meeting we just actually finished a unit on base. So this is a perfect opportunity, and that's going to obviously enhance for fifth grade science. So, and again, just with STEM and the activities that the STEM fair is going to be putting on, which is why we are staying overnight, because it starts right at 8 a.m. If we don't get there, we will miss those learning opportunities and the lessons and demonstrations and the hands-on activities, which is why we decided to do.
So is this something that other schools have the opportunity to be able to do? Not this particular thing, but the fact that we're fundraising for an elementary school? Is that something that's a doable thing for all of our schools?
I would ask the principals, but certainly
Sure.
they have different fundraising, like Fairhaven Grade School does Apple Fest to fundraise for different activities. I mean, each school has different
It just
things
seems
they
like
do.
it's 5th and 6th grade, is that
Yep.
correct? Just seems like a lot of money for 5th and 6th grade. So obviously it's not your K through 6 population. So I assume that you might be fundraising for them or doing something for them at a different time.
Absolutely.
Okay. So so Fairhaven does something, and then Benson, do we do anything?
Nothing of this magnitude.
Okay. Thank you.
Any follow-up, Patty, or you're good?
Are there any
So
I couldn't really understand what you said about the standards, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Those math standards are not standards, they're activities. So I was just curious about, which actual standards they were looking at. I mean, stats in 5th and 6th grade is not like a standard. It's embedded in other standards. So I was just curious about that. And I couldn't understand what you said in the science realm, I'm sorry.
do you I'm sorry, do you want?
So I noticed the original one had. Go ahead, if she wants.
Yeah, you
It's just, I'm not sure if if the dialogue's going to be any better, because I just think we have a poor communication. So I don't want to put you through trying to keep talking if.
Why don't you give it one more try, Patty, and to see if you can come across clearly addressing the standards component.
Is this any better? I'm so sorry, but you hear me?
I can hear you good now.
Okay. we, in fifth grade, we do Earth. So we look at the sun, moon, stars, and planets. Specifically, it's the 5-S12. Do you want like the specific standard, like that with the? Is that what you guys are looking for with the NGSS alignment, like the specific standard overview? Like moon, lunar cycle, like that's again that, but the standard is 5-ESS1-2. Is that like what you were looking for?
Yes, we're nodding. That was a
Yes.
bit of information we
Okay.
were looking for.
So like,
Julie, you have?
how can this? So how we're looking at how the sun can help us explore other planets. How does the moon change shape? Why do the stars change with the season? So we have a whole unit in fifth grade on spaceship Earth. And again, it's the sun, moon, stars, and planets. And that is 5-ESS1-2 and 1-1. So those are our science standards, as well as looking at gravity, the 5-PS2-1, and that's again with gravity. So those are the science standards that will go along with the NASA activities that they're planning. And hello, is that what you were looking for?
Yes, thank you very much. Life is tough in Benson Orwell, huh, with the internet. My gosh.
Oh, net speed is awesome.
You should try Hubbardton.
We don't need any help from the state of Vermont.
She lives in Benson, by the way.
Oh, she does. That's why you're saying that.
Well, no, this service is tough.
Yeah. No. I live in Benson. I know.
Starlink.
I understand completely.
You got some specifics there, Patty.
I did.
Okay. Julie, good, a follow-up?
Yeah, so the original one had 32 kids, 6 adults for a total of 38. And the new one had 32 kids, number of adults going TBD, number of students and adult TBD. And then on the top it says Marcy, Patty Ann, Grace, and Jessica. Is it Marcy, Grayson, Patty Ann, Grace? Like, is that 4 adults, 4 different names, first names?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah. So they're all school employees, the 4.
yes.
And then TBD parents is because even though you've paid for the hotel, we don't know how many parents are going.
Exactly.
Okay. So so you have 4 adults and 32 kids. So that's more than a 4 to 10, so, or 1 to 10. So that's a great ratio to have for students. Any idea how many parents are going? You had originally adults.
Again,
6.
would have a better clue than I would on that.
Yeah.
My class tomorrow, it goes.
Quite a few.
Drive. The youth
I don't think she heard that her name was mentioned.
Patty Ann, did you have a number of parents who are going on the field trip as of now? Right, you might not get an answer.
Yeah, I might
to
not
that
get an answer,
question.
right?
Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
How many other grade schools have field trips that leave the state of Vermont?
I don't know that question.
Leave the state or overnight? Like I just approved
Either.
one to Ticonderoga for Castleton.
Well, I mean, leave the state as in, not just across the border.
Well, anything that's more than 100 miles comes to this
Yes.
board, so.
But are any of the other schools doing anything comparable? Or are they even capable of doing anything comparable?
Oh, no.
That was why I just asked that
Yeah.
question, just to let you know, that's where I was getting at.
Since I'm new, I just have a question. You said this was a large price tag. And I don't have any point of reference. So like, what is an average field trip cost, and does it involve this many students, or would it involve more or less? I mean, what usually comes before the board? Like, does it have to be a certain cost for us to approve it, or?
No, it's above 100 miles.
Okay. Okay, so it's distance.
It's distance and overnight.
Okay.
I just think we have a responsibility to be equitable, and all communities aren't equitably capable of raising funds. So I just question that because.
And we're also going through some
Be
growing
such-
pains too. I mean, we just merged our 7th and 8th graders, so you might think that usually those types of trips are reserved for the older
Yeah,
kids.
I mean, I
We
wouldn't
went,
be.
we went to Boston last year as 8th graders, but now all the 7th and 8th graders are together, so it's gonna take a little time to maybe work some of that stuff out and maybe spread the wealth to some of the lower grades at those individual communities. I don't quite know, but certainly we just did go through a big change with the middle.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about equity. So when you have a 7th and 8th grade that merged, like you talked about, now they can go on a trip, right? Because everybody, and maybe they're fundraising, but they're fundraising from 5 or 6 different towns or whatever, however many towns. That's a very different fundraising base than a town. And I mean, other people don't have to agree with me, but I just think that public education has to be really, really careful about those things. That's a fun trip as far as I'm concerned. Will there be some education to it? Absolutely. There is on any trip that you take, but it is based in a fun kind of thing. The Red Sox are a smart organization. Obviously, they want to get people down to their ball field. So I'm just being.
To buy those concessions that are like, $10
Well-
for a water.
Well, speaking of.
Been many times. I know how much it costs. I was there last weekend.
Speaking of concessions, this says cost of trip hotel. What's going on with food? Does the hotel include breakfast? So they're getting breakfast at the hotel?
Are they getting lunch at the stadium?
Lunch at the stadium? Is it included in the STEM trip? Like, how is food being handled in this? Do kids have to bring their own money for food?
And the money's already been raised, right? Money's already been raised? So we raised the money before we had permission to go anywhere.
I think they were just fundraising in general, not about this.
Not about this trip, specific trip then?
Yeah,
Just fundraising in general, okay?
But Patty Ann, can you answer about food?
Yes. So breakfast is included. We do get there's a food voucher for the game day lunch at the stadium. So we have the STEM, then we have lunch and then the game. So the students will have food. We do have to fundraise for dinner the night before. So we did we're doing a bottle drive for it. Approved. We haven't started the bottle drive yet. That's
So you're still
Yeah.
raising funds for dinner on the way home
yes.
the day of the event? Okay, okay.
They'd also need dinner at the hotel if they're leaving at noon.
Yeah. They need 2 dinners.
We have that for the night before.
What are you doing?
So it's just the dinner on the trip home.
So you already have dinner secured for the night, the day you leave?
Yes, so we have right now the last fundraising we need to do is for the dinner on the way back. Lunch and breakfast is provided, and then on the way back from Boston, we'll need to provide dinner to the students.
And dinner the night before is provided. So dinner the night before, lunch and breakfast and lunch. So dinner, breakfast, and lunch are all provided, still waiting to do dinner on the way home.
Yes.
No, dinner on the way down is not, I don't think provided. I think she already fundraised for it.
Yeah.
she's saying.
Yeah, so it's already provided. They've already into
They've
the
already
budget.
accounted for it.
So even though this is $2,163.59 for hotel, that doesn't include food. So there's going to be more than that spent because it's going to include voucher lunch, because those cost money. They're cheaper, but they're voucher lunch. Dinner the day down. Breakfast is with the hotel, probably free breakfast with the hotel. And then you've got dinner on the way home. So it's going to be more than the $2,163.59.
Right. And then I am curious as to, it takes, on a bad day, 5 hours to get to Boston, so you get there at 5. So what's happening from 5 to, let's see, they're in 5th and 6th grade, so that would be 5 to midnight, right? So I'm just curious, because if they're not busy, they'll make themselves busy.
So yeah, what's happening?
Did you hear that question, Patty Ann, about what the kids are going to be doing the first night when they're down there?
Can you, we're going to be doing, we're going to walk, we're going to do the Freedom Trail. So we'll be walking around with the students. So we'll be looking at Boston and the history and just talking about, history and just letting the kids walk and explore. That's the night we get there, the first night. And that's free. So that's not going to cost anything.
So there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the field trip request?
I just got a comment. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I'm not sure. I mean, we raised money. I don't know why other towns can't raise money too. I mean, I don't think Orwell should be held back because we can raise money and other towns can't. I mean, personally, I think it's a good experience for the kids. There's plenty of adults going.
When is the deadline to tell them you're coming or not?
You're saying like the boards?
No, when is the deadline for this trip? When does this Boston trip, when do they need to know these kids are coming? When's the deadline?
Do you know that, Patty Ann?
Marcy, Miss Hart would know the exact date, but she said we needed all the 100% for the parents by the end of this week. So I'm assuming it'd be by the end of this week.
So I guess it's a little late now, but I do think that when they're overnight, it'd be really nice if there was a schedule attached to let us know exactly what's happening while they're away. Because by approving this, I'm putting myself on the line that everybody's going to be safe and that walking around the Boston Common following the Freedom Trail at night is going to be safe.
And it is not a safe place at night.
100% I've done it.
I've done it.
My
I did
upward
it a
bound
week
students.
ago. It is very unsafe.
So I just think that there needs to be like some really concrete, what hotel you're staying at, where is it located, how far from Fenway, are you traveling on the subway, are you walking to Fenway, how are there's a lot of questions for travel in Boston about safety with kids. 1-to-10 ratio is fantastic. So I'm happy to see that there's 4-to-32 and plus some parents. But if students have never been on the subway before or doing something like that, it can be a challenge to handle. And it would be nice if there was some kind of schedule or visual for us to see, this is how we're spending our time, this is what it's looking at. And also attach the NASA curriculum would be awesome too. So we can say, oh my God, look at this awesome experience. Here's the NASA curriculum that says this is what they're doing. You don't have to ask about standards and put teachers on the spot. Boom, there it is. So that would be my recommendation for future overnight kind of timeframes with students.
And backups. I mean, if you can't go outside and walk around because it's raining,
pouring rain
or
out.
snowing.
Yep.
I just feel this leaves a lot to be desired as
Plan
far
B.
as information and last minute.
So I definitely agree with you, Julie. I don't mean to be critical of anybody, but there weren't even last names on half of the names, and I don't know everybody who's in Orwell. So I just thought that it could have been much better prepared for us. I know I probably have a responsibility to call Brooke, but I don't look at things until a couple of days beforehand. So having just gone to Boston, I have to tell you that I think I need more information about what exactly is going to happen before I could vote yes.
Yeah.
Should we table it to the next meeting?
I would be happy to do that. With some more
But the
information. I
trip
would be
date's
more than
April
happy to help.
4th.
What's today?
Well,
Not even-
we have a meeting on the 27th, but the trip date is April 4th.
But I don't think they did their job in presenting it to the board in such a way that we can vote on it safely.
But we didn't ask them to attach anything, so that's kind of our fault too.
But if you're asking for, I mean, we just had a pre-approval for a high school one saying we're going to fundraise for this. This is what we're thinking about. Can we go ahead with our ideas? And we asked a whole bunch of questions and they said that they would bring us back the information. This is kind of last minute. We want your approval now, and we're not going to fully educate you on what's happening.
Is it possible to prove with like an addendum that we get a full schedule? I'm asking because this is my
But
first
then
board meeting.
how would we say, well, this isn't really safe? Do we then rescind our approval? How would we do that?
I'm not sure, but I think that, I think anybody needs to understand that one of our, I mean, we just saw it on the board, you know, our responsibilities. I think safety is an incredible responsibility. So I just want to make sure that it's very clearly delineated as to what we're going to do with our kids. Because 10-year-olds in Boston, if they've never been there before and it's dark, we're responsible. So that's all I'm saying.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Remember, we've sent kids to Washington DC for 2 and 3 days. We've sent kids to New York City for 2 and 3 days. We've sent kids to Boston before for 2 and 3 days. So these kids, not these kids, but 5th and 6th graders did this Boston trip. I know they didn't stay overnight, and this is the first time I've ever heard any discussion like this about an overnight trip for anybody. So I don't think the parents and the faculties are gonna go down there and put the kids in danger. I think they know, they're smart enough to come off of the trail in the evening. I mean, it doesn't get light till dark till 7:30 now. By then it'd be even later. I think it's a perfectly fine trip. Like I said, we've sent kids on a lot of other trips. So,
With more advanced planning, I think, and
I don't know, I've never had this much scrutiny since I've been on this board about a field trip.
well, things have also started to change worldwide.
Okay, that's fine, but I don't think Boston's that dangerous of a city.
A parent, I mean, if they're concerned, they don't have to send their kid, right? I mean, it's not mandatory for everyone. So I think that between the faculty and the parents, they should be able to coordinate whether or not they think this trip is safe for their child. And hopefully lots of parents accompany them would be my thought.
And I agree, Peter. We haven't had a lot of discussions about the specifics, and I think that's our oversight. I think that's wrong. I think we should. But I also know that, like with Washington DC, as parents, we have trip at meeting after meeting after meeting about what happens, what the rules are, where everybody's staying. Like there's an agenda. There's just, I think it's more robust than this because this is new. They haven't done this before, right? So there's not that robust kind of history that's happened with a lot of the other trips that kids have taken. And I think 5th and 6th, I think also makes us all kind of take a little bit of a deeper breath, I think, than 8th grade and high school, and just kind of like how they behave when they're not around school and around where, you know, kind of that kind of structure. So I agree. We have never scrutinized. I think that's our oversight. And I just think it's something we need to add to this.
I'm
process.
fine with adding it, or, you know, in the future saying you need to come sooner and we need a better agenda. I don't have a problem with that.
Yep. I think that's kind of what we're getting at, is that it's kind of our oversight, not, this is the form, right? They did the form. They
look
did
like
the
they
right
did it
thing.
on
Is this a
January
policy?
20th.
Should it be revisited in a
There's
policy
a
committee?
policy, but then there's administrative procedures. So I think I'll double check, but I think most of your concerns can be addressed through procedures.
Right. Just
But I
what
will
has to be
double check.
submitted to us, not
Yeah,
particularly.
so the form could be overhauled.
But this is a school day, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So to your point, Christina, I mean, it is a school day. So if you're taking your child out, it's like any other school day. You know, they would theoretically be absent that day. Not that it necessarily matters to anybody, but you know.
Or they'd be at school by themselves if they didn't.
Or they'd be, yes, or they'd go to school, correct, and somebody would offer
So
them a
they
curriculum for
can
the
go
day.
to school,
Mhm.
not
You can't tell them they can't go to school if you take a field trip.
and just
go
hang out in
yeah.
another classroom.
Right, you just be, well, sometimes you're, you know, hanging out with the principal or something and doing something, you know, that kind of thing.
Right. Yep. So I think if I was to approve this, it would be nice to get an email or some kind of after kind of thing that just says, hey, this is our plan. This is the hotel we're staying at. This is what we're doing between these hours. This is lights out. You know, this is lights out, room time, lights out. Everybody needs to be in their room doing their thing at this time, you know, et cetera, I think would just be nice to get. I think it would make me feel better approving it.
Patrick, can you do that for Monday
Absolutely.
or next, the 27th?
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna have all that stuff. We just never submitted it to the board before.
Yep, I agree.
Right.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion? So there is a motion on the floor to approve the field trip request as presented. All those in favor of approving the field trip request, say aye.
Aye.
And is there anyone opposed to the field trip?
Aye
request?
or nay?
No.
All right, so that's Rebecca and Patty were nays. Anyone else? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, next we'll move on to the central office report, which was included in the packet. Are there any questions for administrators?
I have one. Hey, Casey.
Hey,
Casey, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. The outdoor pursuits, are you stating that there because it is a new course that we are offering? Because it just stated it and I was like, what does it mean? So that is something that you're going to do based on what Josh does at Muslim. So a similar setup. Okay.
Nice job.
I think it's exciting.
Yeah. And who's going to teach that? Do you know yet?
At this point, we have Eric Marchese,
Oh, yeah.
Trevor Kelson, and Guy Maroli,
Nice.
CVS reunion.
Fantastic.
And then myself, last year we took a trip to visit Josh.
Yep.
And spent some time just really digging into how it is in science. And in his case, he incorporates social studies. How that looks, we talked to students. And I ended up spending the day there. And so it's been a long kind of build, but it was good that we took time and we could kind of recognize what would be the Fairhaven version or the Slate Valley version, knowing that we're not the same as Josh is, but we can kind of have our own spin on things. And I think it's been exciting. We
It sounds great.
stored a bunch of items. We're hopeful that we can, there's a building permit. You walk in the Pine Street entrance, we're hopeful we can build a space. The students will help build that space, design it and build it out by the low ropes course where we can store gear and kind of have, Josh has kind of a learning space where he does some stuff. So yeah, it's
awesome.
Exciting. And it'll be our first go around. The neat thing is we have 7th and 8th graders here. So on the 17th, this Friday, we have a full day of PD, and as part of professional development, we'll have, teachers talking and trying to identify, what would be good fits for this sort of model as we launch for the first time.
Awesome.
What grade level?
Good job.
9th.
9th.
Part of helping that transition, from middle to high school and recognizing how school feels and can look different when things are integrated. And it's neat. Ben has been working with the teachers in the high school to recognize kind of different pathways for students. And so this is a part of that to get them kind of launched and started to then move in different directions.
And you tapped Future Farmers of America. Washington County does an awesome tap into Future Farmers of America. There's a lot of amazing benefits to that organization. So,
Yes, so
that was
that's-
really nice to see.
It's been exciting as well. And I'm sorry I didn't include that. That's 7 through 12.
Awesome.
So wanting to integrate as many middle and high school students into, and we're going to launch it as a club. There are a few different models out there. For Jen's High School, Otter Valley does it as a club as opposed to integrated into a course. We've talked about how we might morph it into a course at some point, and so that might kind of blend a little bit with horticulture, the course that's offered here. But I think for our initial start, we're going to host it as a club. We're hopeful to bring any interested students over to VTC in May. And a gentleman I know, Aaron Townsend, who works at the Hanford Career Center, who does the coursing program, he's leading the game of logging. So we're hopeful that we have some students that are interested. We'll start to advertise later on in the agenda. There's approval of the club. So if there's approval, then we can move forward with that. As again, another opportunity and kind of just flush out some of our clubs and opportunities for 7th to 12th grade.
And obviously FFA is more than farming if you're doing a game of logging. So
Yeah.
even though
And
the
there's
name is
leadership.
FFA, it's a pretty wide.
Quite robust, and that's why, not that you'd want to look at that student handbook, but there's a lot. I mean, I'm
Very
familiar,
cool.
but I've learned a ton
Yeah.
in about a month's time.
It's awesome.
And we have Ben has a staff member who had experience in high school and was like in a regional group and held certain positions, and he's one of our hopeful maybe club advisor if it gets
Nice.
approved and can help
Awesome.
support that.
Thank you.
So speaking of approval, we might as well just tackle this right now. It's agenda item number 12, which is the approval of the FFA as a club. So Casey's been speaking to that. Is there a motion to?
Making a motion, we approve the FFA club.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions for?
Who's it open to, Casey?
7th through 12th grade
7th to
students.
12th, okay.
And there are, I don't know, I've talked to some students that are involved in 4-H, but I'm not certain if you have anyone who's involved with FFA currently in another location. But there are students that we have that are in a 4-H club in Addison County or in Washington County. And so there are some folks that have interests, and so I think this provides an opportunity within school as opposed to having some of those interests just supported outside of school.
Is there an FFA? Is that, I don't know anything about it. So is it like 4-H that there are countywide?
It's school-based,
No.
but I just meant that some interests of students that participate in 4-H find that their interests can fit within some of the FFA opportunities and then can therefore provide, in the school realm to kind of support what you do outside of school. But they're different.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I think one of the benefits of that is it really, I mean, the kids all have to engage in public speaking, which is certainly a lost art these days because it's all gone to texting. And as they go on, there are regional competitions and everything from public speaking to everything else. It goes to regional, and then there's a national.
In Indianapolis.
There's national events every year. So it really can open some doors.
Yeah, and the students, the size of the group that attend these, you can do it individual or you can do it team-wise. So I think it allows for that flexibility. If a student has an interest, then they can track through regional and then national. And then if you have a team competing, then they can do the same.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks, Casey. Any other discussion or questions about the club? All right, so all those in favor of approving the FFA, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
That was central office report.
Yeah, I think we were kind of embedded, embedded within central office report.
We were.
I don't know if we ever closed that one.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on the central office?
Yeah, question. I know Cheryl's not here. Is there, how are we doing on the food contract do we have lunch prices in here? Weren't we?
Yeah, we're going out to
Jade.
bid on it. She's in the middle of working on that, so we're on schedule for that, but.
And as part of that bidding process, like with our current provider, if you got a kid who has, food allergies and that type of thing, you're directed to go to their website and look at what's there, which is a minefield and not really informative. That's something I think we should, discuss with the various bidders and have a better allergen menu, if nothing else.
Okay.
How many bidders,
about that.
how many potential bidders could there be? Were there any in the past other than one?
Last time I think we had
Two. Cafe services.
yes, I think we had 2 last time.
Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like busing.
So I'm wondering too, like, what is the story behind taking food services out of each individual school? Just convenience? Like, why did schools stop making lunch themselves?
Ooh, it's
Probably.
expensive. And when your workers don't show up, you're cooking
Yeah.
As a principal.
as a principal.
It was,
No, it really is true. I mean, when your workers don't show up, you don't have any recourse. It's just, it's like teachers with substitutes. If you don't have substitutes, someone has to take that place. So
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope.
The big thing was the expense because each school was buying food separately.
Right. When you could
Whereas with these guys, they're buying food for half of the state. So it's a volume deal.
Do we have any say in the menus that they prepare or not really?
I think that stuff is seasonal. You get what you get, what you get. I mean, with
Yeah.
your provider, right? It's not like you can say, I would like this tomato sauce. You get what you get,
Well-
what you get type thing. So I think
You guys have any?
the menus, probably if you looked at all the schools, you have they all have the same
Right.
menus because they buy in bulk.
Yeah. I
So,
just
no, you
mean
don't.
more,
You know,
There used to be a more
Healthy.
localized flavor to things.
yeah.
They're required to
Purchase.
source so
Source.
much from
Correct.
local,
like Dutchess
Local-
Farm.
Yeah, like Champlain Valley
businesses,
apples and you get.
there are
you know,
requirements, but there's also very strict nutritional standards that we have to meet.
Yeah.
And I
We
have to
didn't before.
to sign or circle what my kids want to eat. It always makes point of what is local, what is
Yeah.
in season. They make a point on each menu to point those things out.
Tim, may I offer some input here?
Sure, go ahead, Kurt.
And I'm sure you guys have kept track of the numbers, but what I noticed, and Neil Robinson was upset that, about free lunches, and somebody named Rockefeller could get a free lunch. What I was finding was that middle and upper middle class kids were bringing their own. They just weren't eating that stuff. And I was on staff long enough to, I remember Cindy, and she put a lot of her heart and effort into what she did. And I just in terms of quality, we took it went downhill when Cindy was let go and when we started outsourcing that. So I just thought I'd offer that input.
Thank you, Kurt.
As food's not really the greatest thing.
Which was back to my point about how much leverage do we have to say what's on the menu or not on the menu?
I don't think it's
Understand
all
by
in the menu.
involved,
I just
but-
think it's because it's more or less, it's cafeteria food. You know,
Right.
And I
it wouldn't
think-
matter what the menu was. It's just the ingredients and how it's made.
Do you anticipate multiple bids or just a small handful?
Small handful.
Small handful.
Nice way.
There really wasn't much difference between the last two.
Mm-mm.
There really wasn't much difference in what they served, what they did. It was all same old, same old.
There wasn't really a lot of variety, and I think they were, trying to serve food that wasn't expensive to them. A lot of Tex-Mex stuff, a lot of wraps, a lot of pizza, which was not the pizza I remember. So it was, a lot of carbs, and a lot of cheap carbs.
I'm saying this in the nicest way. We provide food to sustain. We provide food to make kids not hungry. We don't, I'm saying that in the nicest way. It is public school. It is publicly funded. We are providing sustainable meals. And that is, we're never going to be much more than that when it comes to food. You're not going to find
Yeah.
gourmet, and you're not going to, you know what I mean? You're not going to find, we can have expectations of some, lettuce that's fresher than, what you get at the gas station.
Well,
But we are, as a public entity, our responsibility is to sustain. And
yeah, but I also have a son who has a
Yep.
friend that moved to Burlington.
Yep.
Who has food that looks completely different.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
the same state.
Absolutely.
And as a farmer and a chef, I can tell you, I understand the food costs.
Yep.
But I also think that we have the responsibility to make sure that we're doing more than just sustaining and providing healthy food that isn't going to make them want to jump out of their chairs for the entire afternoon because it's nothing but carbs and sugar. So I just, that was my only,
I wish that was more possible. I wish we had more control.
so.
I'll also
I
say
think we
that
do
part
have
of the
control.
problem is that you just have kids whose palates don't always agree with the food product also. So like where I work, whole wheat pizza crust is not something that many kids like.
Well, I mean, I'm
So,
not,
you know
whole
what I
wheat
mean?
pizza
So-
isn't healthy.
Right, I'm just
It's
trying
a
to say
facade of being healthy. It's not healthy.
that's considered a
It is
more
according to
healthy
the government.
choice.
Yes, correct.
As far as the government,
Sure.
you know, says.
Yes,
And
it is.
I would argue that unfortunately by doing that,
Right.
a lot of students say, no, I don't want to eat that pizza because it doesn't taste good.
Well, I don't want to eat it either.
Whole wheat, whole
saying.
wheat pizza is evil.
Yeah.
It's evil.
I mean, I think the other key to this, and it's something that's beyond our control, is that these menus have to fulfill certain government requirements.
Correct.
And that's why we can't serve whole milk in the schools, even though all of the research and data out there says the kids are way better off drinking
Correct.
whole milk than skim
Right.
or low fat. When Mrs. Obama redid the lunch standards, and we're stuck with them until Congress changes them. That's where we're stuck. I mean,
And there,
and it came with sandwiches, if
Yeah.
the kids had to choose, they could either have mayonnaise on a sandwich or they could have cheese, but you can't have both. Well, nobody,
Sun butter and jelly is just not delicious.
yeah, so.
well, and
But there are school districts that are doing it. And I wasn't trying to like start a debate. I just wondered if there were ways that we could potentially give input as far as what we feel is important to provide to the kids.
yeah, and the students do surveys and we
Right.
do go through that process as part of the bidding
Yeah.
process.
But the problem is that these companies that are bidding on it are for profit. They don't
Sure.
care about what, so no company that has better product is going to bid for our school because we're not going to make them enough money. So,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that Michelle Obama stuff, I don't think it was a law. I think it was a regulation or set of
Yeah.
regulations. And I don't think, well, I don't know what Biden's doing, but I don't think the Trump administration enforced them.
I don't.
Might
I
be
don't
worth
know.
looking into what the status of that is.
They are being enforced now. And I mean, I serve on the governing board for the National Superintendent's Organization, and they're looking at stricter requirements, nutritional requirements for school lunches. So stricter, less sugar, less added fat. So
No more mayonnaise?
I don't know all of the particulars,
Bring
but the
mayonnaise back.
requirements are cool.
But it's part of
Who
the,
knows what's
Anything.
going to happen with all of that? I will keep you informed, but yes.
Casey.
Do you eat it, Casey?
Oh, yeah.
I'd love
Does Chris have any input on based off of like behavior? I mean, there must be studies out there, right, with Chris Benway about like
what kids eat.
affecting their moods or disabilities or
I don't know. They come in with power drinks this big and those down before lunch. So I don't
Or
think we
a
could
Dunkin'
really.
Donuts coffee.
Or Dunkin' Donuts
Give a
coffee,
pure
sample,
sample.
no.
Right.
And a donut and a bagel.
Yeah, that's a hard.
Hard, it would be very, very difficult to measure that. I think.
Table this to another.
Yeah.
So when the bids
Obviously,
come
I
in,
don't have any
is the board
specific
gonna-
information, but I know that there are committees that Cheryl's been working with each of the schools with regard to getting feedback on the school meals program, and just would echo what folks said earlier, which there are very specific requirements in terms of exactly what's offered and what students have to receive as part of a school meal. So students generally don't want to eat all of which they have to receive as part of that. So, but Cheryl is the one that has the most information on that. And I know that the school nurses also participate in giving that feedback as well.
And you ultimately, as a board, decide on who the bid is awarded to. So you have choice in that.
Yeah, are we gonna vote on a number, or is there gonna be representation from the Abbey Group and
There
whoever else
typically
might?
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
They usually come.
Did each one
Last time, they used
Yeah.
the last time,
Oh, they
it's
used to.
came with
really good
dessert
and just
and
fun
then-
stuff. And
Yeah.
fish once a week and, we sat in Benson at that meeting and
Yes.
listened to that.
Yeah, but the fish thing didn't last. I don't think they
Correct.
really like fish.
Well, and we
Right.
also had COVID and supply chain
Yeah.
issues too throughout most of
So-
this contract. So I think I
There's-
certainly can have Cheryl give you more details
There's-
about it at the next meeting.
Isn't there also your basic meal, but then there's you can pay for
Right.
parts of your meal?
Correct.
Yeah.
Which when they offer, sometimes you can't get the stuff that you pay for that looks better or whatever, because it's not part of the, like, you have to take this for free.
But that's not in all schools, because Orwell doesn't have a pay-for meal thing.
It's not an option.
No.
Okay.
No, they used
You're-
to have a à la carte
Yeah, they did used to have a la
portion,
carte.
but I don't.
Well, we have severe staffing issues too, so you only can produce, I mean, part of our challenge is not having enough staff to produce the food.
Gotcha.
So
Can I
that
make
plays
a
into this
motion?
too.
And I think the participation, what Cheryl's mentioned in the past is that the participation rate,
I can't make a motion.
I said, let's table it.
All right, field trips and food, those have been hot
We're not
topics.
gonna,
tonight.
we're not gonna solve the food issue tonight.
No. No, but understanding is important about our rules and
Yeah.
guidelines and
Yeah.
what we're hampered by.
And I'll have her give a little more in-depth presentation of that on the 27th.
All right, so let's close this central office report. Is there anything else?
I have one question.
One.
This is for Chris Benway. You mentioned that there's 12 partner programs in Addison and Rutland counties. What are the 12 partner programs?
Little preschools.
you would ask me for a list. I can pull that up if you give me just a moment and I can put it in the chat. But they range anywhere from, the Mary Johnson program, which has sites in both Middlebury and Orwell, to the Leapfrog program in Poultney. So they pretty much run the gamut. So those are private programs that are on an approved preschool partnership list that's provided by the Agency of Education.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then our kids there.
All right, so we're gonna move on from central office to contract lists and resignations.
Yeah, because there's a ton of
There's
them.
a like ton on here.
So yeah, and these, well, there's 3 resignations, so let's do a separate motion to consider the 3 resignations. And then we'll do a separate motion to approve.
So I make a motion to accept resignations of Melissa Rosado, elementary school teacher, Mark Stanzoni, special education teacher, and Cheryl Nedzwicki, work-based learning teacher.
Second.
And those are all effective the end of the year.
Correct.
Any questions or discussion? Peter?
I was just wondering if Patrick knows why the third grade teacher's leaving Orwell.
Wants to work closer to home.
Unless it was.
Okay.
Because there was no letter.
I was just curious.
They weren't included.
There was a letter included, one.
One.
I think Cheryl's was
Yeah,
included in our
Cheryl's
packet.
wasn't. Those other ones were not.
All right, any other discussion or question on the resignations? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the resignations, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next we have a long list of contracts. I would just say that these are in alignment with the master agreement. These increases are in alignment with the master agreement. And then in reference to the administrative salaries, those are in alignment with the I guess the plan or the recommendation that Brooke had put forth previously.
So I make a motion to accept administration salaries for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Second.
Any questions or discussion on admin salaries? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Okay, I make a motion to accept the teacher contracts for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Second.
Questions or discussion on the teacher contracts? Hearing nothing, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I did have one question, Tim. Just those 3 resignations, will they be filled next year?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to now move to number 14, leadership team structure. Brooke will give a quick overview of what her,
You skipped pre-qualified.
oh, I
You wanna
did, I'm
do
sorry,
that
Chris
first?
Cole, yep.
That's fine.
Okay, so since we don't have a buildings and grounds committee until the end of the month, something came up regarding the bid process for building out and refitting the locker room space into potential classroom space for the middle school. Chris Cole is requiring action tonight. Chris, can you just speak to what you're looking for tonight?
Yep, so this is the bid process to receive hopefully 2, 3, 4 bids on the project down there. Anything that we think is going to be over $500,000, there's a specific bid process the state requires. So that's what I want to go over with everybody. I was going to do it at the next meeting, but we got everything we needed done last Friday, and this, we approve it tonight. It gives us another extra 2 weeks at the end. So hopefully by this process, I can have final bids to the board on May 22nd would be the goal. And then that would allow us some time to get ready. One thing we did find through talking with bidders, potential contractors, there's no way we're going to be able to do this just in the summertime. It's going to have to go into the school year. So you'll see in the bid specs we put together that we're anticipating July to December 1st to have the project done. If we had gone for just July, August, we probably would not get any bids. Everybody's already lined up for the summer. So bids that are 500,000 and over, we have to first put an ad out there, public notification that we have this project coming forward. Then we also, the board has to approve pre-qualifications for bidders. And we did this with the middle school project. So I might come back with you in a couple weeks or a month with a list of 5 contractors or 10 contractors. Brooke and I and Cheryl will look through them and make sure they're all meet the criteria. So once we get that list, say it's a list of 5, those are the only folks that can bid on the project. Once you approve that and we get bids back, you have to go with the low bid unless the contract is within 1% of the other contractor. So that's why we'll screen the contractor list closely, make sure they're qualified and can do the work we need. But it does lock you into picking the low bid once we get to that part. So for tonight, we would need approval to go out to bid, approval on the qualification criteria, and then the request for a qualification statement.
So is that 3 separate motions?
You can try to do them all together in one.
Okay.
And then I'll have a lot more detail for folks that are on the Building and Grounds Committee once we get that meeting in a month or so.
I'll make a motion for the pre-qualification to bid, and what else?
The criteria for qualification.
Criteria for qualification.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions or discussion for Chris? Is there not a meeting in a couple weeks, Buildings and Grounds?
Yeah, there is.
See how now.
So
27th.
It says 27th
has
of
the
March.
layout been decided yet? Because I don't know if we're shrinking the locker rooms and making more classroom space. There was about lines and orientation. Has that all been decided, or you're going to discuss that at the?
I want to discuss it at the next meeting, but it's pretty close to what we had talked about last time.
Okay.
With a few tweaks here and there, but we would still have 2 locker rooms, all the office space that we need, and the 2 classrooms will fit down there.
All right. Any further discussion on this one? Hearing nothing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, Chris. So yes, now moving on to the leadership team structure. Brooke is gonna make a recommendation on how things could potentially be organized next year. In terms of discussion, if board members have specific questions about individuals or movements, I'd ask that you reserve those for an executive session. We are going to have an executive session about some of these points, so just save your questions for that. But Brooke's going to give a more generalized overview of the structure and the reasons for that.
Yep. So you should have all received in your packet a memo from me outlining the proposed structure at the middle school, high school. So I am recommending that we move to a co-principalship, and that being Ben would be primarily in charge of grades 9 through 12, and a co-principal who we would be hiring would be primarily in charge of grades 7 through 8. Of course, there would be overlap where appropriate, which I've outlined under the roles, and definitely we can flesh that out more in the job description. Currently, we have an assistant Principal in charge of special ed, which is Margaret. She would remain in that position, overseeing 7 through 12. And then we have an assistant principal, currently is Gwen Hagenbarth, who would, in this case, work with Ben, primarily grades 9 through 12, with discipline. But again, there would be some, overlap with 7th and 8th grade as well. But those would be the primary responsibilities. What we are noticing this year is we had put the 504 plan management under principals. And we have, I believe, 78 504 plans in the 7 through 12 building. And it's really difficult to manage those in addition to the number of IEPs and EST plans. And as part of the budgeting process this year, we proposed a support staff position, a what I need position, which is going to be talking about the MTSS piece, the guided structured study halls, those types of things. And what we're proposing right now is turning that into a teaching position and having them oversee 504 case management along with the principals. It's just become the amount of kiddos we have on plans, 7 through 12, has become very cumbersome. In terms of testing coordinator, currently right now, Gwen, who is our assistant principal, oversees the college board testing. We would propose moving that to one of our school counselors. If you remember, at the beginning of the year, we did not have all of our school counseling positions filled. We were down a school counselor. So our proposal would be to assign a school counselor to that. That would require a stipend, probably around $2,700, or according to our stipend chart, but they would be in charge of, SATs, AP exams, all of those things. And then as part of that, again, just the volume of kiddos that are on IEP plans at the high school. Margaret, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're at 80 something IEP plans, 7 through 12. So as part of that, and also looking at our alternative programming across the district right now, Bonnie Lenihan, who's the assistant principal at Castleton Elementary, oversees the elementary alternative programming in our district. They're housed at Castleton, but there's students from all of the schools that attend that programming. I am proposing Bonnie Lenihan to also take over the middle school alternative programming, the supervision of that, to create a continuum of service, up through elementary school to middle school. Some of these things, are growing pains. Once we're all in the space and figuring out how things work, and where we have capacity, where we don't have capacity, this is what we believe will work moving forward in terms of shifting of responsibilities. I think this is a natural evolution, and that we're being responsive to the needs of the staff and the students. So this would be my proposal moving forward.
The enrollment of 7 through 12 next year is
About 550.
Thank you.
More than almost.
I have a question.
Yep.
The College Board testing stipend, are those duties done during the school day?
In terms of assigning the accommodations and all of those different things, and I would defer to Ben. I think some of those things are done outside of the school day, and some would be done during the school day,
I think
depending.
It would be a mix, Kurt, probably dependent upon the exact task being handled. There's some tasks that require contact, some tasks that require work to be done during normal work hours, contacting other folks. But then there's other pieces that could be done outside of the normal work day. But I think it's kind of a mix.
Like what sorts of things are done outside of the, and I don't want to belabor this because it's, it's not a large money issue, but what sorts of things are done outside the,
So
the
one example would be compiling lists of accommodations for tests, setting that, organizational pieces to that you could do and have in place for when you have staff in. I would say even some of the mailings, getting them prepared, but then, obviously setting them up the next day. So those kinds of tasks would be probably done outside the normal school hours.
So again, some with special ed kids or even 504 students, there's special paperwork that has to be completed if they are requesting different accommodations to take for the test. So that's something that I've done in the past and still continue to do. You have to have permission from parents in order to gain those different accommodations. So some of that happens after school hours. Some of it happens before school hours.
Margaret, maybe you can answer this. How many students that take the SATs and PSATs require accommodations?
It depends on the student's individual needs.
I mean, they would request them, correct?
Well, there's a process. So there's a form that I would have to fill out with the student and the parent and then request it to the College Board.
It's just, and again, I'll say this one thing and then let it go because it's not a lot of money, but it's just we're being asked to spend a certain amount of money and we don't have numbers we don't have quantification of how much time is spent outside of school and on accommodations, because there are lots of kids that are on IEPs or 504s that don't take the SATs, and then there are lots of kids that don't ask for accommodations even though they may be entitled to them.
Okay, we are going to need action on this recommended leadership team. So I'd take a motion to that effect, and we can continue the discussion or answer any other questions within that motion.
Make the motion, we accept the new leadership team.
Okay.
Second.
All right, is there further questions, discussion on Brooke's proposal?
So are you saying that we're going into an executive session to discuss part of this tonight? Is that what I heard? I'm sorry, is that what I heard?
If you had any specific questions on individuals or anything, just not to ask them in public. But if they're on positions.
Would you prefer to do the executive session then make the decision?
I hate executive sessions.
Serve a purpose.
Yeah, maybe. We could have yeah, I mean, you were gonna have one anyway, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of thinking that.
Yes, there's some personnel.
It's not a
issues.
hugely big piece, but it's just a little thing.
Margaret, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to, it's not just, the College Board is not just requesting accommodations. It's setting up test schedules, testing dates, and making sure that there's tests available for every student. So I don't want it just to be mixed as just accommodations. That's not that's a piece of it. There's a larger scale of setting up the test schedule and ordering the test and accounting for the test, making sure that all the material is ready and all completed to send back.
And you have to proctor the test,
Yeah,
do all that too.
absolutely.
It's yeah.
Well, and let's admit, it's gonna get bigger when it goes digital.
Right.
So it's not like next year's gonna be smooth sailing, because starting in January, it's digital. You don't have a choice. You're done with paper.
Right, but I mean.
So it's just, I know, but it's just gonna get bigger, because then you gotta get computers and so to have somebody who can concentrate on that would not be a horrific thing, I don't think.
When I think of a guidance counselor, especially the ones that do college counseling, I mean, that's what I think of, things that they do. And it's not like they're teaching 6 classes a day. They're in their offices, and yeah, they have caseloads of students, but they, it's part of being a guidance counselor.
So Peter, you made a motion, right? Was there a second?
Glenn seconded it.
Glenn, I guess is it appropriate to maybe rescind those, finalize the discussion in an executive session, and then reintroduce those motions to take action afterwards? Does that seem appropriate?
So I gotta rescind my motion?
Yeah, if you don't
I
mind.
rescind my motion.
I rescind my second because. So we're gonna continue this discussion in executive session. We'll take action outside of that.
Need a motion to go into executive session?
Well, we're not there quite yet.
Oh.
But do it
Just make a motion for executive session.
All right, is there any other business?
Where there's 4 feet of snow on the ground out there, guys get home tonight. I don't.
Yes.
Yes.
So when we had our mandatory meeting the other week, that we do every year, and we had it in the band room, I was glad the heat didn't work. Okay. And just because, we had people complaining they couldn't hear as it was. But, we do this, we do, a meeting or two a year in there, and you can never hear. And there is no sound system in there. And that's just when we're using it. But, we're also talking about, the equity thing. What are we telling our band kids? And I assume we use that for some kind of drama club or something. They're seeing us with how many ball fields here, and we're talking about another one, and we don't even have a reasonable space in these buildings for those kids.
So I think we need to clarify, there is a sound system there. The issue is by having a hybrid, in-person and virtual meeting, if you have 2 audio sources coming, you get looping and feedback.
Right, okay.
So that was to accommodate the virtual participants. We had our sound system we use for the board meeting versus an amplifier for in-person attendees.
Okay, I totally understand that.
Yeah, that's all it was.
Okay, but we need to figure out a way to do that better, because those people on the screen have a much better experience.
Yeah.
They have a better view of the presentation and can hear everything. Whereas us within the room miss a lot of it.
Well, I struggled with that since the beginning.
Yeah, I understand
when you
that.
add another speaker system into it, it doesn't work.
I
One
attended.
of the solutions that are on the market for it, the challenge becomes their stationary solutions. So we could create a meeting space in this location that could meet for both, but the traveling roadshow of, trying to do board meetings in the remote schools and stuff.
Right.
That's where the challenge lies in that part of the equation.
Oh, yeah.
So, no, to your point though, I agree with you. It would be nice to try to look at a way to incorporate the virtual and in-person on a perfect solution. It's just, so far, we haven't found the right balance to try to incorporate. We want to be able to have a virtual presence when we do the meetings in Orwell and Benson, et cetera. So it's a work in progress. There's a lot of things in life are.
But you guys are still looking into that and moving it down, okay?
I attended virtually and you could not hear. There was a lot of interference with papers, and you couldn't see, you couldn't hear. It was very difficult. So I actually have.
Then I feel better.
I actually thought,
No, wow, I should have went.
And actually, the last board meeting, yes, I had attended virtually, and I could not hear the principals when they were speaking. So
No one
So,
can
yeah.
hear anything.
Very effective.
It's really hard.
I've got a couple of questions about the administrative reorganization.
But does he know we're going to?
We're not in executive session.
We're going into executive session about that in a couple minutes.
Oh, we're not there yet.
Correct.
We're not there. No.
Okay.
And you'll have a different link to get there.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
She sent that out.
Okay,
I don't think I have my school board email yet.
Oh, that's true.
So
All right, well, you figure that out, Kurt. John, other business, is there any other business,
I guess the other thing, I'm glad we're down to only 3 people missing. We've talked from time to time about should we change the number of the board, which seems drastic and hard to do. Is it possible to change our bylaws so that we can base the quorum number on the amount of board seats that are filled?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that is legal. I don't, I would assume that would take
Yeah, Jen, that question down.
a vote from the towns, but I'm just throwing that out as, maybe something to think.
I mean, the bylaws were in our packet tonight. It does specifically speak to the representation,
Yes,
so.
but I believe the definition of a quorum, I'll have to go back and look, was in the Articles of Agreement that it was approved by voters. So, but I will double check.
So we're gonna have a discussion on this in the next meeting or two, so we'll be sure to address that specific question when Brooke makes that presentation. Any other business? Okay. So as I said, we're gonna have an executive session, but agenda building for next meeting, Brooke, anything of note?
Well, we should have some job descriptions. I think I'm going to put the food service bid. We can have Cheryl speak a bit about that.
You won't have bids, but
You
can
won't,
just-
but she
okay.
could speak more about the process and what she's going through with that. Board seat conversation.
Okay. All right, so there's always something to talk about. All right, so yes, now we've reached the executive session. We will have an executive session for personnel, so I'll take a motion to that effect.
So moved.
And Kurt, I forwarded the link to your email, so.
All those in favor
Should
of
have
going into executive session, please say aye.
Aye. Thank you.